The We're Here For You project aims to provide 2S LGBTQ+ youth with community, affirmation, education, and resource sharing.
Hi, I'm Jenna, and I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as bi or queer.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I also use she, her pronouns, and I identify as bisexual. Sure.
We decided to film this video together because when we were growing up, we didn't know of any happy queer couples other than maybe Ellen and Portia. It's hard to see it as a possible future for yourself when you only ever see straight couples or queer people dying on TV. So now you've met one.
We also wanted to take a second to acknowledge our own points of privilege as white cis women living on Indigenous lands. We recognize that our experiences are not reflective of the whole Two-Spirit LGBTQ+ or queer community based off of certain opportunities and privileges that we have based off of our identities and how we look. Also, I don't know if you just noticed, but we use the term queer interchangeably with Two-Spirit LGBTQ+, as it's something that we've reclaimed for ourselves in the community, but we recognize and respect that it's just not something that everybody identifies with, so just letting you know now.
Before we start, we would like to thank you for taking this time to watch this video and everything you've done so far to take care of yourself during these times and as you've been learning more about yourself and your identity.
When your fellow 2S LGBTQ+ community members are struggling, what have you found helpful when it comes to supporting them?
The most important thing I've found is to just really listen to what they have to say, and if they're coming to terms with their identity, assuring them that they don't have to choose any one label for themselves if they don't want to, that however they feel and choose to express themselves is valid.
I've also found that for those who are more secure in their identity but not secure in their environment, just being an open ear to kind of listen and help them guide themselves through the process of whatever situation they're in can be a big help, because inevitably they have to make the decision for themselves, or you have to make a decision that works for you in your situation, but just having someone to be able to listen to you, even if they're just going to be able to connect you to someone who can actually help, like a queer helpline. It's just so nice to have someone there to listen.
We also want to add, if you're friends with someone and you feel comfortable enough to come out to them and you trust them, do it. This shows that if they're also queer, then they can talk with you about it too, and you've opened up that connection. I've made some of my best friends this way, and we never would have gotten together if I hadn't. I didn't know anyone else who was queer when I came out, so it's been really fun and freeing to connect with and make friends with other queer people as an adult.
How have you found 2S LGBTQ+ community and self-care during COVID-19?
So luckily, many organizations have continued to offer free events online. So luckily, we were exposed to some of these pre-COVID. So when lockdown happened, we just continued to stay connected with those through online platforms. One of these is Flamingo Market. So it's a marketplace that's for all queer artists, mostly from Ontario, and they sell all sorts of different things, including face masks and jewelry and clothing.
There's also other organizations for almost any interest or community that you belong to as well. So we recently took an interest in ASL, or American Sign Language, and there are organizations for deaf queer folks and deaf education and outreach called Handspeak and Deaf Spectrum, through which we were actually able to receive some ASL tutoring from a deaf instructor.
What are some of your favorite 2S LGBTQ+ positive TV shows, movies, novels, or songs?
So unfortunately, as you may know, queer positive TV shows and movies can be few and far between, but one that we've really enjoyed is Schitt's Creek. So would recommend. It's a really good light comedy that explores queer issues, but it isn't focused on queer issues, and it's a very positive show.
And it's Canadian.
I've also really enjoyed lots of different queer artists, including Paris, so that's P-V-R-I-S, Hayley Kiyoko, Tegan and Sarah, King Princess, and Halsey. One thing I really like about following queer artists is that you can go to, when COVID's done, then you can go to their concert and it's a good way to meet other queer people without outing yourself because they're popular artists.
Can you share with us an example of what you would have liked to have heard when sharing your gender identity and/or sexual orientation with someone for the first time?
So when I came out to my dad, he was very accepting of me, and so was all of my family. But the first thing he said to me was, well, your mother and I still love you. And that kind of took me by surprise because it was like, well, I wasn't expecting there to be an alternative. I always expected you to love me still. So I didn't love that. So I think the most important thing when someone comes out to you is to just thank them for trusting you with this information. And also you might want to ask who they're already out to and who they absolutely don't want to find out, just so that you know.
For me, actually, my mom took my coming out process to my dad away from me, and she told my dad before I was ready. I'm really lucky that both of them are very accepting of me, but it was kind of jarring that neither of them really said anything about it until I came out to my dad. It was such a big deal in my head, coming out to him and kind of preparing him for any possibility when I come back from school. But looking back, I honestly wish I'd made more of a joke out of it. There were so many opportunities. I think to me, the best reactions were more ambivalence. So, okay, great, thanks. What does that mean for us? How does that change our dynamic? And I'm gonna say that to you. I'm glad you came out to us. Thanks for sharing that in your process of identifying yourself and kind of coming to terms with who you are, and we're happy to have you. Just want to thank you again for watching. Again, we really appreciate you involving us in your process and your life, and thank you for sharing our life with us. I want you to know that only you get to decide how you want to define yourself. That doesn't get decided for you just because you've never slept with someone, or you've never dated this gender, or you only dated that gender, or because you're married, you've somehow decided or you've picked a side. Gender and sexuality are fluid and a constant discovery process, and that can be scary, but it's also invigorating and it can be so rewarding. You get to constantly discover yourself and own and love you for who you are. So thank you again for sharing at least who you are right now with us and allowing us to share who we are with you.
The LGBT YouthLine is there for Ontario 2S LGBTQ+ youth from Sunday to Friday, 4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.